corner of the Earth, there exists a lake that does not nurture life, but calcifies it. Any creature unfortunate enough to fall into this blood-red water will be literally turned into a stone statue. Thousands of kilometers away, on an island completely isolated from humanity, trees ooze a sap as red as human blood. They possess shapes so bizarre that if you only look at them through photos, your first reaction would be skepticism. But this is not CGI. It is not an AI-generated product, and it is certainly not the set of a sci-fi movie. All of them exist right on the planet we live on, serving as proof that the Earth is actually far stranger than what humans think they understand. Would you believe there is a desert so similar to Mars that the world's leading space agency had to borrow it to test space rovers? Or that there is a massive 40-kilometer-wide structure located in the heart of a desolate desert, so large that it is clearly visible from orbit. Yet its origin remains a mystery, challenging all geological limits to this day. And those are just two of the mysteries we are about to explore. Welcome to a journey that crosses the boundaries of what we once knew. Brace yourselves, because right after this, we will set foot on the 10 strangest and most extreme lands on Earth, places that make our planet look more like a different galaxy than humanity's familiar home. Number 10. Richat Structure, the Eye of the Earth in the Sahara Desert. Imagine you are flying at an altitude of 400 kilometers in outer space, looking through the spacecraft window down at the glowing golden ocean of sand in the Sahara Desert. A colossal structure suddenly appears like a giant human eye staring wide open back up into the cosmos. That is the Richat Structure. This geological vortex spans up to 40 kilometers wide, so massive that astronauts on the International Space Station, ISS, frequently use it as an unmistakable natural landmark whenever they fly over Africa. However, if you decide to land here, the experience changes completely. Under the suffocating 45 degrees Celsius heat of the Mauritanian desert, the wheels of your off-road vehicle sink deep into the scorching sand, with nothing around but the roaring, scorching wind carrying the parched scent of ancient rock dust. Stepping out of the vehicle, what lies beneath your feet is not fine sand, but sharp, rugged, sedimentary rocks. At ground level, the scale of this place is so immense that your vision is deceived. You cannot see any circles at all. Before your eyes are only towering rock walls, dozens of meters high, stretching out into the endless distance. You are standing inside a giant mystery without even knowing it. It is this flawless concentric circle structure that has turned this place into a breeding ground for legends. Ancient nomadic tribes looked at the perfectly arranged, layered rock strata and believed that this was a permanent scar from a battle among the gods. In modern times, scholars were astonished to discover the uncanny similarities between the Richat structure and the writings of the philosopher Plato regarding Atlantis. This legendary city was described as consisting of alternating concentric rings of land and water, with dimensions that perfectly match the Richat structure. The question remains open. Could this place have once been an ocean and the ruins of a lost civilization? If you ask a geologist what lies beneath this skin-stinging thorn dust, they will tell you a story that began 100 million years ago when the supercontinent Pangaea fractured. Deep within the earth, the terrifying pressure of magma pushed the sedimentary rock layers upward, creating a colossal rock bubble, a geological dome. As the magma cooled and receded, it left behind a hollow dome structure. At this point, the harsh sandstorms of the Sahara acted as a file, continuously grinding away over millions of years. The softer limestone layers were eroded and blown away first, creating valleys. The sturdier quartz layers withstood the test of time, continuing to protrude upward. The result of that persistent sculpting process is the bizarre concentric rings we see today. A French geologist once wrote in his field diary while camping here, "The night here is so silent that you can hear the sound of individual grains of sand striking the cliff walls." Under the full moon, the quartz rings reflect a faint, cold light. You feel as tiny as a speck of dust standing amidst the ruins of a dead world. As dawn breaks and the sunlight sweeps across the rocky ridges, the entire structure shifts in color from deep purple to a fiery red, like a giant eye slowly opening. That is the Richat Structure, a pinnacle of macro-engineering by the universe, created without a single brick laid by human hands. Yet, if the eye of the earth leaves you overwhelmed by the ingenious arrangement of its grand stone vortices, the next destination resembles a planet melting and screaming in toxicity. Number 9. Dallol, the acid planet screaming in toxins. With a temperature of 46 degrees Celsius, your body's first reaction upon stepping out of the protective vehicle cabin is a gasp for air, your chest tightening as air thick with the pungent stench of sulfur forces its way up your nose. Beneath the soles of your shoes, the ground is not desert sand, but a brittle crust of salt, continuously letting out sharp crackling, sounds like breaking glass with every single step. Welcome to Dallol, a land situated deep within the Danakil Depression of Ethiopia. If there is any place on this planet that could make you believe you have left Earth to set foot on a distant, toxic planet, this is it. Before you, the familiar world completely vanishes. There is not a blade of grass, not a hint of a tree, nor the sound of birds or any sign of normal life. Instead, a surreal, bubbling landscape unfolds, covered in blinding patches of neon yellow, toxic green pools of liquid, and burning bands of orange-red minerals. From narrow fissures in the ground, columns of steam rise thick and heavy, making the entire surrounding space vibrate violently under the blazing sun. Dallol sits in a depression more than 130 meters below sea level. It acts like a giant basin that catches and traps all heat sources, making it the location with the highest average annual temperature on the planet. The heat here is so extreme that sweat evaporates instantly before it can even stream down your skin, leaving white streaks of salt clinging to your face. But the heat is just the outer shell. The true mystery of Dallol lies several kilometers underground, where a massive volcano silently hides beneath a thick layer of salt. As groundwater from the highlands seeps deep into the earth, it comes into contact with molten magma and is boiled to extreme temperatures. The high-pressure boiling water dissolves all the salt, sulfur, iron, and ancient minerals before spewing back up to the surface through hot springs. As it evaporates under the desert sun, it leaves behind mushroom-shaped salt towers, columns of vibrant yellow crystalline stalactites, and pools of concentrated acid. An explorer once wrote about the terrifying sensation of accidentally dropping a metal spoon into a green pool of water here. In less than 2 minutes, the dense acid filled with iron and sulfur completely ate away the metal surface, turning it dull black and crumbly. The surface of the pool continuously crackled with tiny gas bubbles, but there was absolutely no heat from fire. It was the boiling of toxins. For decades, astrobiologists hoped to find some form of extremophile bacteria that could survive in the acid pools of Dallol, to serve as evidence that life could exist on Mars. But after a series of field studies, they had to disappointedly admit some pools at Dallol are completely sterile. The environment here is so extreme that it destroys even the most resilient protein structures. In other words, this is one of the very few places on Earth where life completely surrenders to nature. Dallol is a grand paradox. It possesses a magnificent, mesmerizing beauty akin to an abstract painting of the cosmos. Yet at the same time, it is a deadly graveyard, ready to swallow anyone who grows careless. Moving away from the vibrant yet suffocating acid planet of Ethiopia, the next destination on our journey takes you to a completely opposite world. A place that does not scream in heat and toxins, but remains quiet, cold, and guards a deadly secret hidden behind blinding white crystals. Number 8. Salar de Uyuni, where the horizon is erased. In 1969, when the astronauts aboard Apollo 11 looked down at the Earth, they suddenly spotted a brilliant, shimmering band of white light reflecting from the South American highlands, so strong that they initially mistook it for an undiscovered frozen ocean, but it was not ice. The thing reflecting sunlight straight into space at that moment was Bolivia's Salar de Uyuni, the largest salt flat on the planet. If you set foot here during the dry season months, the first impression is not beauty, but an utter disorientation of vision. Before you lie 10,000 square kilometers of pure, white salt, absolutely flat and stretching infinitely in every direction. There is not a hill, not a tree, nor any landmark for your eyes to latch onto. But the true magic of Salar de Uyuni only appears when the rainy season arrives. At this time, a thin layer of water, only a few centimeters deep, gently blankets the salt surface. The combination of the perfectly still water and the white salt bed underneath turns the entire land into a colossal natural mirror. On a clear day, the horizon, which normally serves to separate heaven and earth, abruptly vanishes. The crisp blue sky and the fluffy white clouds above are perfectly reflected, without a single ripple, onto the ground below. The moment you step out of the car, your brain's entire navigation system is tricked. Clouds drift lazily right beneath the soles of your feet. The blazing sunlight bounces back up from the ground. You no longer feel like you are standing on a solid planet, but rather floating amidst the infinite void of the universe, where the boundary between reality and illusion has been completely erased. About 40,000 years ago, this entire highland region was part of a massive prehistoric lake named Minchin. As the Earth's climate warmed, the lake water gradually evaporated over millennia, leaving behind a colossal salt crust containing an estimated 10 billion tons of pure salt. The most miraculous thing is that the altitude variance across the entire area is only a few centimeters. This absurdly perfect flatness is the reason why aerospace agencies today still use Salar de Uyuni to calibrate the altimeters of satellites from space. It is this extreme flatness that gives birth to a strange phenomenon known as the spatial illusion. Without a horizon to serve as a point of comparison, humans completely lose the ability to determine distance and scale. You could look at a companion standing 200 meters away from you, but in your eyes, they look like a giant walking right in front of you. Cars in the distance appear as tiny as toys, drifting aimlessly amidst a white void. Reality at this moment feels like a computer graphics glitch, where the ordinary laws of visual physics are completely void. Venturing deeper into the heart of the salt flat, the space suddenly falls into a state of silence, so profound it becomes suffocating. There is no sound of engines, no chirping of birds. Everything becomes so still that you can clearly hear the crisp crunch of salt crystals breaking beneath the soles of your shoes, the thumping of your heart in your chest, and the echo of your own breath bouncing back from the grand void that lies between reality and a dream. As twilight falls, the salt flat shifts from pure white to deep purple and pale pink, reflecting the final rays of the day. That is Salar de Uyuni, a lonely, cold place that carries a pure beauty, forcing one into silence to feel the wonder and grace of this planet. Leaving behind the stark white mirror of heaven in Bolivia, the next landmark in our journey will take you to a complete opposite extreme, a place where nature does not use white silk to soothe your vision, but uses a liquid as red as fresh blood to warn of a deadly boundary. Number 7. Socotra, the island forgotten by time. In the ancient maritime maps of the Greeks and Romans, there was a land mentioned with a name full of dread: the island of ghosts and fire dragons. The ancients whispered to one another that there was a place sitting isolated in the Arabian Sea, where the ground oozes drops of bright red blood, and the trees bear the shapes of monstrous creatures. That legend, after thousands of years, turned out to be a living reality. That is, Socotra, an island off the coast of Yemen, which possesses one of the strangest ecosystems to ever exist on Earth. This time, let us change our approach. There are no helicopters flying from above, nor off-road vehicles roaring. You set foot on the island from a small wooden boat, walking along a barren beach where towering grey limestone cliffs cast their shadows onto the white sand. As you begin to head deep into the interior, advancing onto the arid and windswept rocky highlands, the real world you know suddenly shatters. Before you are thousands of trees with wide, flat canopies that look like giant mushrooms, or upturned umbrellas plunged straight into the cobblestone ground. This is the dragon's blood tree. Standing amidst them is the bottle tree, with its swollen, waterlogged trunk, as smooth as an ancient ceramic vase, topped only by a few distorted branches and leaves. The abnormality of the vegetation here is so great that your brain enters a state of conflict. You know you are on Earth, but every visual cell insists you have wandered into a primeval forest on a strange planet in outer space. If you talk to an evolutionary biologist about the reason behind this botanical madness, they will tell you that this island is actually a fragment of the past. About 6 million years ago, a major tectonic plate fractured, splitting Socotra away from the African continent and the Arabian Peninsula. From that moment on, the evolutionary flow on this island of nearly 4,000 square kilometers officially cut off communication with the rest of the world. Through millions of years of solitude in the middle of the ocean, the organisms here had to find ways to cope with the scorching heat and severe water scarcity. As a result, more than 1/3 of the plant species on the island cannot be found anywhere else on the blue planet. Socotra turned into a primitive evolutionary laboratory, preserving unique life forms that the modern timeline wiped out long ago. Step closer to a dragon's blood tree and touch its rugged bark. That perfect umbrella-shaped canopy structure is not a random whim of nature, but a masterpiece of biological engineering. The thick, tightly interwoven leaves are designed to capture every rare drop of mist blown in from the sea, channeling the water down the trunk to the roots. Simultaneously, this giant umbrella creates absolute shade beneath the base, preventing the meager freshwater sources underground from being scorched away by the desert sun. If you take a sharp object and lightly slash the bark, a crimson liquid, as thick as blood, slowly oozes out. The ancients considered this resin a treasure. They crossed oceans to collect it to use as dye for imperial robes, as medicine to cure all ailments, and as a mystical incense in witchcraft rituals. Night falls over Socotra, bringing a primitive silence that is chillingly eerie. In the wildest, deepest valleys of the island, there are absolutely no electric lights, no engine noises, and not a single radio frequency breaks through. As you look up at the starry sky, thick as a brilliant ribbon of light above the dragon's blood trees, standing motionless in the dark, your ears hear only the wind whistling through the limestone crevices and the rustle of dry leaves brushing against one another. That is the sound of Earth from its dawn, from a time before humans ever appeared to give names to all things. That is Socotra, an alien planet trapped right in the heart of our ocean, a reminder that life always finds a way to rise in the most unimaginable forms when pushed to the edge of solitude. Leaving behind the mystical primeval forest of the Arabian Sea, the next landmark will take you to a completely different extreme. A place where nature does not hide in the heart of a lonely ocean, but towers high into the South American clouds, guarding a great ancient stone fortress that defies the flow of time. Number 6. Mount Roraima, the stone fortress of the primeval supercontinent. In 1912, the author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle released his classic fantasy novel titled The Lost World. In the work, he described an expedition that wandered onto a magnificent tabletop mountain in South America, where time was completely frozen, totally isolated from human civilization, and acting as the final refuge for prehistoric creatures. Many people at the time thought this was merely a product of imagination. But in reality, Conan Doyle did not make it up. He based his prototype on a real location, a towering stone fortress standing at the triple border point between Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, Mount Roraima. This time, you are not traveling through scorching sand or open seas, but hacking a path through a dense and humid Amazon rainforest. The suffocating humidity and the cries of primates suddenly quiet down as you look up. Appearing through the thick shroud of mist is a colossal block of black rock, rising vertically like a rampart, hundreds of meters high, its summit flat like a giant stone table of the gods placed floating among the cloud layers. On stormy days, white clouds churn and blanket the entire base of the mountain, cutting it off from the ground and turning Roraima into a lonely stone island drifting in an ocean of clouds and sky. If you ask a geologist about the age of this stone block blocking the sky, they will not use units of millions of years, but billions of years. Roraima belongs to the Tepui group, the oldest tabletop mountains on Earth. They were formed from the remnants of a primeval supercontinent named Gondwana, which existed before the continental plates split apart and even before dinosaurs appeared. Over billions of years, wind, rain, and rivers eroded and washed away all the surrounding soft earth and rock. What remained as the sturdiest parts are these tabletop mountains, standing defiant against time like fossilized fragments of a dead world. The experience when you actually climb across the treacherous cliffs to set foot on the summit of Roraima will be a massive emotional shock, a total disconnection from reality. The surface of this summit, spanning dozens of square kilometers, looks nothing like any mountaintop you have ever known. The ground here is a labyrinth of black quartz rock, eaten away by rainwater over millions of years into bizarre, grotesque shapes that rise like the ruins of a deserted ancient city. Beneath your feet, because the soil has been completely washed away, there are no grand ancient trees. Instead, there is a strange vegetation typical of misty wetlands. Your palms touch tiny carnivorous plants, wild flowers, with sophisticated trapping structures designed to feed themselves on insects rather than nutrients from the soil. Everywhere are small pools of water, crystal clear yet freezing cold, reflecting the grey sky of the highlands. Due to being isolated by vertical cliffs for millions of years, the ecosystem on the summit of Roraima evolved in its own separate time bubble. More than 35% of the species here are endemic, meaning they have lived here, on this high summit, since the dawn of time without ever knowing how the world below had changed. When a storm hits the summit of Roraima, the space falls into a terrifying state of stillness. Thick mist rolls through the rocky crevices, erasing all boundaries of the horizon or any sense of height. Your ears hear only the wind roaring through the quartz cliff fissures and the patter of raindrops falling into ancient stone basins. Standing there, amidst the freezing mist clinging to your skin, you understand why this place is called the Lost World. It does not need Tyrannosaurus rexes like in the novels. The eternal silence of these billion-year-old rocks is already a proud assertion of nature against the smallness of man, leaving behind the ancient stone fortress where time is frozen among the South American clouds. The next landmark in our journey will bring you back to the ground, a place that does not hide in cold mist, but roars amidst the East African wilderness, where nature uses a liquid as red as fresh blood to warn of a deadly boundary. Number 5. Lake Natron, the alkaline graveyard and fortress of the flamingos. If there is any place in the world that perfectly defines the phrase deadly beauty, it must surely be Lake Natron in northern Tanzania. Viewed from satellite photographs, this lake appears radiant, like a strip of pinkish, deep red satin mixed with snow-white streaks of mineral salts, winding gracefully through the barren East African valley. It is magnificently, mesmerizingly beautiful, resembling an abstract artwork that nature accidentally painted onto the ground. But do not let those vibrant colors deceive you. Stepping down from the helicopter, reality slaps you with a blast of hot, dry air, thick with the stench of ammonia and salt water that punches straight down your throat. You walk toward the water's edge. The lake surface is as still as a giant mirror of blood-red water, without a single ripple, without the sound of a single fish splashing, silent to an eerie degree. And then you see them. Right on the dry branches protruding from the water, or along the barren lakeshore, are the carcasses of kingfishers, bats, or flamingos. They are not ordinary dry skeletons. Their entire bodies, from their plumage down to their sharp beaks, are coated in a grayish mineral crust as hard as stone, preserving their deadly posture from years ago, as if they had been struck by a petrifying curse in an instant. If you ask a chemist about this terrifying power, they will shake their heads at the spiritual rumors. They will tell you that you are standing before a natural chemical pool of extreme alkalinity. Thanks to the hot springs rich in sodium carbonate flowing from the nearby Old Doinyo Lengai volcano, the water of Lake Natron has a pH of up to 10.5, equivalent to a heavy-duty industrial cleaner. The water here does not turn organisms into stone instantly as in myths, but it acts as a high-dose chemical trap. When birds are deceived by the mirror-flat lake surface and plunge in, this horrific alkalinity immediately burns their eyes and skin, causing them to lose orientation and collapse. As their bodies sink, the dense concentration of bicarbonate salts in the lake coats and calcifies the corpse, completely blocking bacterial decomposition. Lake Natron does not destroy life through rotting. It turns the corpses into perfect mineral mummies, freezing them permanently in the timeline. The blood-red hue of the lake surface, meanwhile, is an interesting biological paradox. It is created by billions of extremophile microorganisms called haloarchaea. While most living things are corroded and destroyed by this alkaline water, these ancient bacteria chose this place as their paradise to thrive. They absorb the extreme African sunlight and secrete a bright red pigment, accidentally dyeing the entire body of dead water red. But the madness of Lake Natron does not stop there. In the middle of this toxic lake, where even the most resilient predators like hyenas or lions dare not venture, lies the safest refuge on the planet for the lesser flamingo. Every breeding season, millions of flamingos fly back here. They use their legs, covered in thick horny skin, to withstand the toxic alkali, building nests out of mud that rise above the red water to lay their eggs. It is the harsh environment of Lake Natron that turns this place into a perfect natural fortress. It prevents predatory beasts from reaching the chicks, turning a deadly graveyard into a cradle that protects emerging life. Lake Natron is a profound lesson in the balance of creation. It is simultaneously a hell that corrodes life and a sanctuary that nurtures survival. A place where the boundary between death and rebirth no longer has a distance, operating according to a logic completely outside the ordinary understanding of humans. Moving away from the hauntingly red lake surface of Tanzania, the next destination on our journey will take you to an absolute opposite extreme. A land that does not use toxic chemicals to lock down life, but uses an ocean of vibrant red sand along with towering sandstone cliffs to test the limits of human survival, a place dubbed Mars on Earth. Number 4. Wadi Rum, the red planet left behind on Earth. If you are a fan of Hollywood movies, there is a land you have undoubtedly seen many times on the big screen, but under different names. It was the rugged, perilous surface of Mars where astronaut Mark Watney was left behind in The Martian, and it was also the harsh desert planet Arrakis, home to giant sandworms in the blockbuster Dune. all of those grand, insane sci-fi backdrops actually required no digital CGI brushstrokes from a computer. They are entirely real, located in the Wadi Rum Valley of the Kingdom of Jordan. Let us change our guiding lens. This time, you are not walking or taking a boat, but sitting on the back bed of a battered pickup truck, following the deep tire tracks left in the sand by Bedouin nomads. When the truck engine cuts out, your surroundings abruptly plunge into a state of silence so profound it becomes suffocating. Before you is an ocean of sand that is neither yellow nor white, but a deep charcoal-hot red, stretching endlessly until it crashes into massive, hollowed, rugged sandstone mountains that rise amidst the desert like the ruins of a vanished alien civilization. You step down, scooping a handful of red dust into your hand. The desert wind blows hard, driving tiny sand grains through canyons that run deep and long, creating long, howling sounds that echo like the cries of a dead planet. If you travel with a geologist and press them for the reason behind this mystical red hue, they will tell you to look at the sand grains from a chemical perspective. The red of Wadi Rum is no accident. The entire mountain ranges and sand dunes here are composed of layers of sandstone and granite dating back hundreds of millions of years, containing an extremely high iron oxide content. To put it visually, this desert is rusting in the literal sense of the word. Over millions of years of erosion by wind and rare flash floods, the oxidized iron inside the rocks crumbled apart, dyeing this entire vast valley red, turning it into a perfect replica of Mars, which is red for the exact same reason. It is this absurd geological similarity that has made Wadi Rum not just a Hollywood film set, but a real-world space laboratory. Scientists from major aerospace agencies regularly bring autonomous rovers and bulky spacesuits here for field testing. They want their engineers to grow accustomed to the feeling of absolute solitude and the harshness of sandy, dusty terrain before actually launching them into space. Amidst the Jordanian desert, humans are using the reality of Earth to practice living on another planet. But the most memorable experience in Wadi Rum only truly begins when the sun dips below the horizon. The scorching heat of the day recedes at a dizzying speed, making way for the shivering, cold characteristic of the desert. The sky does not turn black immediately, but shifts from burnt orange to a vibrant deep purple. Without city lights, without phone signal, your surroundings are reduced to a vast night sky blanketing the colossal black silhouettes of ancient cliffs. As you sit by a small fire with the native Bedouins, sipping a tea strong with the scent of herbs, and look up at the Milky Way shining bright like a pathway of light, stretching across the desert sky, you will experience a feeling both proud and humble. Wadi Rum delivers extreme solitude. It proves to humans how grand and graceful nature can be, and that the stable, secure world we live in outside is actually just a tiny gift amidst the barren voids of the universe. Leaving behind the windswept and barren red planet of Jordan, the next landmark on our list will take you to a complete opposite extreme. a place where nature abruptly drops the temperature to tens of degrees below zero, using perpetual blocks of ice instead of hot sand to hide a self-luminous crystal sanctuary beneath the floor of an ancient glacier. Number 3. Mendenhall Ice Caves, the self-luminous crystal sanctuary. Forget the dry, stinging heat of the red dust desert for a moment. This time, the world around you suddenly drops to tens of degrees below zero. To reach the next wonder, you must don thick puffer jackets, wear specialized crampons, and duck your body to crawl through a narrow fissure located right at the foot of a colossal glacier in Juneau, Alaska. The moment your shoulders clear the tight squeeze of the rock gap, a visual shock will cause your heart to skip a beat. The entire space above your head and around you is not the darkness of an ordinary cave, but a vaulted ceiling of ice meters thick, emitting a brilliant, magnificent blue light as if you are standing inside a giant, self-luminous diamond. This is the Mendenhall Ice Caves system. The anomaly of this place lies in how it completely flips human logic regarding light. The deeper you go into the earth, the darker the space should become. But here, the cave grows more radiant. The ice walls are not flat, but have been carved by flowing water over thousands of years into rolling waves, smooth as glass, reflecting a mystical emerald blue light that blankets everything. If you ask an optical physicist about the reason behind this magical light, they will tell you that the ice layer above your head is operating as a timeline filter. The ice blocks in the Mendenhall Glacier are nothing like the ice cubes in your home freezer. They have been compressed under the terrifying pressure of tens of thousands of tons of snow over centuries, expelling all air bubbles. When sunlight strikes, this ultra-dense ice crystal structure absorbs all red and yellow wavelengths of light. Only the short wavelengths of blue light can penetrate and reflect back to the human eye. The thicker the ice layer, the deeper and more intensely luminescent the blue becomes, turning this place into a living spectrum that shifts its shades by the hour. But what makes Mendenhall truly haunting for those who have set foot inside is not just its elegant beauty, but a suffocating sense of fragility. Unlike limestone caves that sturdily endure for millions of years, this crystal sanctuary is a living entity, continuously changing its structure by the day, by the hour. As you stand silently in the heart of the cave, your ears will not hear the stillness of the desert. Instead, you hear a sequence of strange sounds. The trickle of melting water running into streams along the freezing cave floor, the occasional crackle of microscopic air bubbles bursting, and most terrifying of all, sharp, dry cracks echoing from deep within the ice mass above your head. That is the sound of the ice vault shifting and fracturing under thermal pressure. The magnificent tunnels you stand in today might collapse entirely by next summer, and a completely new cave system will be hollowed out in a different location. You are admiring a wonder that is actively vanishing even as you look at it. Under the impact of climate change, The Mendenhall Glacier is receding at a rate of dozens of meters per year. These glowing ice caves are becoming increasingly fragile, unstable, and dangerous. Standing in the heart of this wonder, it is easy to fall into a deep contemplation about the transience of beauty. The Mendenhall Ice Cave itself is like a winter mirage, magnificent, exquisite, yet ready to melt and vanish into thin air if humans fail to respect the balance of the planet. Leaving behind the cold and fragile blue ice sanctuary of the far north, the next landmark in our journey will bring you back to the Earth, a place that does not use refracted light to dazzle the viewer, but uses a colossal stone labyrinth standing tall amidst the deep jungle, where the laws of tectonic geology have created blades of stone protruding toward the blue sky. Number 2. Zhangjiajie, the forest of floating mountains. This time, let us begin with a sigh from the great forest. You are standing on a narrow glass bridge, suspended at a height of over 300 meters between two vertical cliffs in Hunan province, China. Around you, a thick, cold, damp mist suddenly surges up from the deep valley, swallowing your feet and enveloping your body. As a strong gust of wind blows through, ripping the shroud of mist in two, your heart skips a beat, floating right before your eyes, piercing through the sea of white clouds, are not ordinary rolling peaks, but thousands of colossal sandstone pillars, slender and vertical like treasured swords plunged straight into the blue sky. This is Zhangjiajie National Forest Park. The anomaly of this landmark lies in how it challenges Newton's law of universal gravitation. On days blanketed by heavy clouds, the entire base of these pillars, which stand hundreds of meters high, is completely hidden beneath a vast sea of mist. In the eyes of the viewer, the summits, covered in lush green pine ridges, suddenly appear to lose their support, looking like lonely stone islands floating in mid-air. Your brain enters a state of utter disbelief, because your vision continuously asserts that these mountains are floating. If you ask a geologist about the reason behind this unrealistic architectural feat, they will tell you that this is the result of a 300-million-year war between stone and water. This entire land was originally a massive sedimentary ocean floor. Through episodes of tectonism, the ground was pushed upward, exposing blocks of ultra-hard quartz sandstone. Yet, soft like water turned out to be the sharpest weapon. Over millions of years, underground rivers, natural acid rain, and the freezing processes of winter acted as sophisticated sculpting blades. They seeped into the vertical fissures of the rock mass, eroding and washing away all the softer, weaker stone layers. What remained as the sturdiest parts, standing defiant against time, are the more than 3,000 solitary stone pillars we see today. Nature used time to carve an ocean floor into a grand forest of stone. This fantastical, legendary beauty is precisely why director James Cameron chose Zhangjiajie as the core inspiration to create the planet Pandora in the cinematic masterpiece Avatar. The scenery of the Hallelujah Mountains floating in the movie, where the banshee creatures spread their wings, is actually a direct replica of the mist-shrouded stone pillars found here. Zhangjiajie itself carries a beauty so mythological that movie cameras barely required special effects to make it look any stranger. Advancing deep into this stone labyrinth, your hearing will be awakened by sounds unique to the East Asian highlands. The wind howling through narrow mountain gaps, creating deep and resonant tones like an ancient flute. The cries of monkeys echoing from cliffs hidden deep in the mist, and the patter of raindrops falling from ancient pine canopies into the bottomless abyss beneath your feet. Standing here amid the hazy smoke and mist that changes shape by the minute, humans completely lose the ability to grasp scale and distance. A stone pillar that seems right before your eyes might actually be a kilometer away. Reality turns into a living ink wash painting, where the boundary between a fantasy dream and the actual physical planet is completely erased. Zhangjiajie is a proud assertion that sometimes the wildest imaginations of humans are merely a clumsy imitation of the masterpieces of Mother Nature. Leaving behind the hazy and majestic planet Pandora of China, the final landmark, position number 1 on our list, will take you to an ultimate extreme. A land that does not hide in the clouds, nor conceal itself underground, but is a mad geographical fracture where life evolved in such a bizarre way that modern science must still bow in helplessness. Number 1. Fly Geyser, the neon beast screaming in the desert. In 1964, a group of workers drilling an oil well in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada, USA, heard a loud explosion shake the ground. A stream of hot water under terrifying pressure spewed straight into the sky, tearing through the metal drill bit. The drill had hit the wrong spot. They had accidentally punctured a massive geothermal pocket located deep beneath the barren desert. People rushed to plug the wellhead to fix the mistake, but the earth refused to close up. From a mechanical wound accidentally left by humans, nature nurtured it over more than half a century to create the strangest structure on the planet. Number 1 on our list, Fly Geyser. Let us change our entire perspective. This time, you are not standing high up admiring the clouds, nor crawling into a cold ice cave. You are walking through a barren, cracked, grey and bone-dry desert region of Nevada. Amidst that dead space where not a single tree grows, your ears begin to hear continuous hissing and roaring, sounds like the hot breath of an ancient beast. Stepping over a high mound, a structure just over 2 meters tall suddenly appears, hitting your eyes with a crazy, blinding neon color palette. The fiery red-orange of flame, the luminescent green of toxins, and the brilliant yellow of sulfur. From 3 rugged, pointed peaks resembling the snouts of monsters, columns of hot water and steam billow continuously into the air, creating a surrounding shroud of mist. You will instantly doubt your vision because this rock formation looks like a living, breathing, bleeding biological entity in the middle of the desert, rather than an inanimate block of stone. If you travel with an astrobiologist and press them about the origin of those surreal neon bands, they will tell you that this structure is actually wearing a coat of life. The water spewing from the earth carries a dense amount of calcium carbonate and silica. As the water evaporates, the minerals precipitate, stacking on top of one another to form hard layers year after year. But the magic that creates the neon color palette belongs to species of thermophilic algae. While this water, hotter than 90 degrees Celsius, can scald and destroy any ordinary organism, these ancient algae chose this place as their sanctuary to multiply. Depending on the temperature shifts of the water as it pours from the peaks down to the surrounding terraces, different algae species develop and react chemically, dyeing the rock mound in starkly contrasting bands of color. Fly Geyser never keeps a fixed color. It is an entity that changes its hues with the seasons and air temperatures, much like the skin of an alien creature reacting to its surroundings. When winter sweeps across the Nevada desert, dropping the air temperature close to freezing, the experience at Fly Geyser touches the threshold of the ultimate surreal. Hot steam meets cold air and condenses into thick clouds, blanketing the neon form as it glows faintly under the full moon. Your ears hear the thumping rush of water, merging with the howling desert night wind. Your nose breathes in the warm, pungent scent of mineral mud. The soles of your feet feel the faint vibrations of the ground, with every pulse of pressure echoing from the deep. You no longer feel like you belong to the 21st century. You feel like a space explorer who has just stepped out of a starship, facing the first trace of life on a strange planet. Fly Geyser is a perfect conclusion to our journey, a wonder born from a human error but perfected by the grand sculpting power of nature. It proves one thing. Even in the most barren and extreme places, the earth always conceals its wildest secrets, ready to burst forth to remind us of a grand, unpredictable reality that lies beyond all limits of human imagination. We often take pride in a civilization that can launch satellites out of the solar system, map the deepest corners of the ocean digitally, and think we have understood almost the entirety of this planet. But when we look into lakes that calcify life, islands isolated for millions of years, or colossal geological scars in the heart of the desert, we realize a reality. Humans have never mastered nature. We are merely learning to adapt to it. The existence of these 10 extreme lands is a stark reminder from creation that the stable, safe, and comfortable world we inhabit every day, where there is air to breathe and fresh water to drink, is actually not a given. It is a perfect and fragile balance of the universe. The Earth does not need humans to exist. It is humans who need the Earth to have a home. Crossing beyond the pages of science fiction, the blue planet always operates according to its own grand and mysterious laws. Wonder does not lie somewhere far out in space. It lies right beneath our feet, in layers of rock and earth that existed for billions of years before mankind ever appeared.